Rain pattered lightly against the wide hospital window as Major Evelyn Hart adjusted the fresh bandage wrapped around her injured leg. The medical team often called her survival a miracle. Months earlier, during a secret mission in Eastern Europe, her fighter jet had gone down. She had managed to eject just in time, saving her life, but not without a heavy price. Her right leg was destroyed beyond repair, and along with it, a part of her very identity. The Air Force wasn't just a career for Evelyn, was her entire world, her sense of purpose. 5 long months had passed since the crash. Endless hours of surgery, painful rounds of physical therapy, and too many nights staring up at the sterile hospital ceiling left her questioning who she was now. Would she ever feel whole again? Would she ever matter outside of the cockpit? One quiet morning, her nurse Louise entered the room carrying an envelope sealed in gold trim. "Evelyn, something big came for you," he said with a small grin as he handed it over. She carefully opened the thick paper, her heart skipping as she noticed the embossed presidential crest at the top. Inside was a formal invitation. "You are cordially invited to the National Veterans Honor Ceremony in Washington, D.C. Your sacrifice and service will be personally recognized by President Donald J. Trump." Her hands froze midair as she read. A lump formed in her throat. The emotions were tangled. Was she honored? Anxious? Cynical? She had seen war firsthand. She had heard countless promises, and she knew how easily people forgot. Yet something about the letter stirred something. Deep inside her, Louise studied her face. "So, are you going?" "I don't know," Evelyn whispered, her eyes falling on the sleek prosthetic resting where her leg used to be. "I don't want applause. I want meaning." Outside the hospital, the rain slowly gave way to sunlight. On the day Evelyn left the rehabilitation center, patients and staff lined the hallway, clapping and cheering as she passed. She nodded politely, her crutch tapping rhythmically on the floor with every step. She didn't smile. Her gratitude was quiet, restrained. Louise caught up to her and pressed a small pouch into her hand. Inside lay a silver pendant in the shape of wings. "For strength," he said softly. She carried it with her as she boarded a train bound for Washington. Alone, with only her military bag at her side, Evelyn gazed out the window at the blur of farmland and towns passing by. Life moved on outside the shadows of war, but inside, her soul still carried the weight of what had been lost. Washington was not new to her. She had visited before for briefings and political events, wrapped neatly in formality. But this trip was different. This wasn't about strategy. This wasn't duty. It was personal. Her co-pilot's face, Lieutenant Mason, flashed in her mind. He hadn't made it back. The guilt pressed down on her chest. Clutching the pendant, she whispered, "I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for him." When the train arrived at Union Station, the breeze caught her freshly cut hair. She wore her dress blues perfectly pressed, her posture sharp and proud. Yet inside, she didn't feel like the soldier her reflection showed. A young staffer holding a sign greeted her warmly. "Major Hart, welcome. The President's office has arranged a room for you at the Capitol Inn. You'll be escorted." "Don't need an escort," she said firmly, then softened her tone. "But thank you." As they drove through the city, Evelyn stared at the monuments. Grand statues of fallen heroes stood tall, but she couldn't shake the irony behind those bronze plaques. The real stories often faded. At the hotel, she carefully unpacked her things. At the bottom of her bag lay a folded American flag, the one returned to her after Mason's death. She placed it gently on the desk. "You should be here, not me," she whispered. The following day was filled with rehearsals. Colonel Begum, the military coordinator, explained her role. "You'll be seated in the front row with other wounded veterans. When your name is called, you'll be recognized directly by the president. He may present a medal or token of gratitude." Evelyn nodded, and that's it. A moment of honor, then you're free. "It's just a moment," she asked quietly. The colonel hesitated. "That's politics. Recognition rarely measures up to sacrifice. His words echoed in her mind long after that evening. While walking near the Lincoln Memorial, Evelyn noticed a boy in a wheelchair sketching. Curious, she approached. "What are you drawing?" The boy looked up, wide-eyed. "You're in uniform." She smiled gently. "I used to fly jets. What about you?" "I want to be a pilot one day," he said proudly. His mother hurried over to apologize, but Evelyn waved it off. She spent nearly an hour with him, answering every question. Before she left, the boy handed her his drawing, a picture of her in uniform with wings. "You're a hero," he said. Softly, her throat tightened. "No, kid, you are." The ceremony hall overflowed with veterans, politicians, and media. Music played, flags waved, and Evelyn sat stiffly in the front row, hands gripping her lap. President Trump entered the room, erupting in applause. He spoke passionately, his words patriotic and firm. Then came the recognitions. Major Evelyn Hart, the announcer, called. She rose slowly, her heart pounding. Trump stepped forward with a polished black box in his hands. "For your extraordinary courage, sacrifice, and service to this nation, I present this token of gratitude." Inside was a diamond-studded medal worth thousands, but Evelyn didn't reach for it. Instead, she looked him directly in the eye. "I can't accept this." The room gasped. Silence fell instantly. Trump raised an eyebrow. "Major Hart, would you care to explain?" Evelyn drew in a deep breath. Her voice didn't waver. "Sir, I appreciate the gesture, but my co-pilot, Lieutenant Mason, didn't make it home. And there are countless others who will never sit in this room. I don't need a medal. I need something else." Trump studied her. "Then what do you ask for?" "I want a promise," she said firmly. "Not for me, for those still fighting, for the ones forgotten. Visit the rehab centers, the burn units, the silent wings where soldiers lie unseen. They don't need gold. Sir, they need presence. They need to know their pain isn't invisible." Veterans in the crowd wiped tears. Some stood in solidarity. Trump's expression softened. "Let's close the metal box." "I wasn't expecting that," he admitted. "But you're right." He leaned into the microphone. "Major Hart has asked for something priceless, and I intend to deliver." Thunderous applause filled the room. Later, backstage, Evelyn sat alone, her heart still racing. A young intern approached her timidly. "Ma'am, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen." She smiled faintly. Bravery isn't refusing medals. It's living without the ones who should have received them. Her phone buzzed a text. "From Louise, saw you on TV. We're all cheering for you. Mason would be proud." Evelyn closed her eyes and whispered, "I hope so." The next morning, headlines swept across the nation. Veteran refuses Trump's medal, asks for veterans instead. Families of fallen soldiers, wounded warriors, and forgotten veterans flooded her with messages of gratitude. She hadn't wanted fame, but the spotlight gave her a platform. 2 days later, her hotel phone rang. "This is President Trump's office. He'd like a private meeting." 1 hour. Wearing her blues once more, Evelyn entered the Oval Office. It was quieter than she expected. Trump shook her hand firmly. "You shook the room," he said. "I didn't mean to," she replied. "You asked for something rare truth. I respect that. I want to visit a VA rehab center, and I want you there with me." Stunned, she nodded. "Yes, sir." A week later, they walked into the VA center together. Cameras stayed outside. Inside were burn victims, amputees, soldiers fighting invisible battles. Evelyn sat with them, listened, and shared her story. Trump listened, too. The atmosphere was raw, real not. Staged in one room, they met a 19-year-old Marine named Kyle, who had lost both legs. He refused to speak. Evelyn sat beside him silently, then removed her own prosthetic leg, placing it gently next to him. "I lost one. You lost two. But we're still here. Let's build something from it." Kyle looked at her for the first time and smiled faintly. Days later, Trump called Evelyn. "I want to create something lasting, a program, a campaign. You lead it, I'll back it. Evelyn thought carefully. Let's call it the Heart Project, named after every broken heart that still beats. The project launched quickly, drawing donations, celebrity support, and veteran volunteers. Evelyn traveled across states, visiting hospitals and schools. Not as a hero, but as a comrade. For the first time since the crash, she felt purpose again. At one school, a young girl handed her a drawing. "You're like Captain America." The child giggled. Evelyn laughed, more like Sergeant's sidekick. She hung the picture in her office, a reminder that courage wasn't perfection, it was persistence. Months later, a letter arrived from Mason's mother. "You stood for him when the world couldn't. You gave his sacrifice meaning. Thank you." Evelyn wept. That letter was the real medal. On Memorial Day, she spoke at a gathering. No medal defines a soldier. Their scars do. Their silence does. Their stories do. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give is remembrance. Years later, Evelyn cut the ribbon at a new facility, the Mason Veterans Healing Center, built through the Heart Project. As she stood there, a boy handed her a small bronze tag that read, "Priceless." "You gave us more than hope," he said. "You gave us a future." In that moment, Evelyn realized she had received the greatest honor of all, legacy.